everyone. Match play Sunday night. This is a little bit unusual for us. Spence, the Canadian Open, just ended a couple hours. How are you feeling? A little bit of a rough weekend here.
Yeah, it was a fun tournament though. Like it's one of the more exciting tournaments that I've actually watched. It was an interesting event for me, Stephie. Like I was talking about this with you yesterday, and it was rough to begin this tournament. Like I was legitimately concerned I was going to lose 6, 7, 8 units. Kind of had to come back on at the very end there, which was great. But how was everything for you?
Not bad. I think, Reeve pulled it out again. Chez Reavie turning into one of my favorite players in the PGA. Very consistent these days. Loves himself a good top 40. No, overall, really good. I think some players got a little bit more recognition that they deserved. Nick Taylor, someone that's been playing very well, probably should have been a little bit more on people's radar, but excited for him. Now we got the U.S. Open. Things are turning up.
Do you have thoughts on Fleetwood not winning that tournament?
I feel like Fleetwood was Fleetwood. My thoughts are that Tommy Fleetwood is Tommy Fleetwood. I also, unfortunately for everyone that was backing him, I did live bet him because when any live bet I make, it's done. It's dead in the water. Doesn't stand a chance. So I did give it the kiss of death yesterday. So I feel bad. It's you guys can blame it on me.
I might have a lot of bad addictions when it comes to gambling and a lot of players that I back every single week. I think the ultimate where you might actually need to admit me to like psychiatric ward is if I start betting Fleetwood, because that was not pretty to win that golf tournament.
And you know what? And I picked him for Who's Your Daddy, and he like missed the cut that week. And I was just now I really bad taste in my mouth, not a fan. Great golfer, but I feel like that, a little bit expected there.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, he had a lot of opportunities to win that, but what a win from Nick Taylor. And I think anybody who ended up on him, it made a lot of logical sense with it. Like he was one of the biggest upside climbers in my model that I had to actually win the tournament. Unfortunately, I stacked the top of my card with the Sam Burns, Cameron Young, Keith Mitchell route. And obviously like none of those players had a chance at any point. And somehow Cameron Young was the best play of those three. So that's not a great thing for me, but I don't know. It's like I always say, outrights are what you hope to hit. And then the placements, the head-to-heads, those are kind of going to be more of the bread and butters where you can build the bankroll over time. So I was happy on Sunday that I was able to turn the week around and at least get myself back to a neutral position.
Right. That's all at that point. That's where I wanted to be, up a little bit, but not too much. I will wait till later in the show because I think he'll come up again, but we won't roast you for Cam Young quite yet. I have a feeling that addiction is going to carry on, but we're on to the U.S. Open. California, third time, 5 years. Why don't you give us a course preview? For us, usually the show is on Wednesday, so it's on Sunday. So you get to give us a little bit more juice than you usually do.
Yeah, so we have Los Angeles Country Club, 7,314 yards on the scorecard, par 70 bent grass greens. It's going to be 156 players in the field. Top 60 and ties will make the cut. I think that's something that you want to keep in mind when making DFS builds because the 6 of 6 percentage is going to be incredibly low there. We obviously haven't gotten this venue as a PGA Tour stop before this go around. But the course looks to be a tee to green challenge that allows the ability to putt from off the surface in some scenarios. I only mention that factor because it does help certain golfers who sometimes struggle with their around the green game. That's kind of the steady answer that I've given with Hovland at a lot of these events recently, to where I believe when he can putt off the surface, and it's not saying every single situation is going to end up with the ability to putt. You have bunkers, you do have thick rough, but you have a lot of undulation, a lot of run out. You have, your favorite word, like it's a very penal course. So we'll cheers to that one on that.
I will drink my happy dad to that.
I have waters.
Sometimes you say it to me.
No, that's probably going to be the one time. I mean, if it comes up after that, then I think that might be like my new addiction word for this show. Okay. But it's wide open fairways. I think that's one of the most pronounced things that I saw at the property. Like sometimes you have as large as 70 to 80 yards in width on these fairways. I think naturally you would expect that answer to dictate an easy scoring track because of the general ease to locate the short grass off the tee. But it's one of those setups where it's just so masterfully pieced together because of the hills, runoffs, undulation. All of that creates what likely becomes a second shot property for the field. Yeah. We see these dried out patches and thick rough throughout. I would probably highlight how a golfer has scored on firm, difficult, and fast courses in the past. I think that's a really good thing to attach into your model. And then a lot of that will be synonymous also with major championship golf, like I'm trying to find those difficult venues and these players that have found a ability to find success at those properties. So, I mean, David said distance, like that's kind of always the answer to it. Like when you have such wide open property with it, I think it also allows golfers like Spieth and Cameron Smith, who do spray the ball a little bit, to be able to use that like creativity and their approach play. But Stephie, like this is an all around tee to green test. And I think the one difference I would give on this course than I would give sometimes, I did weigh putting kind of substantially, and I rated recent putting. And that's a statistic where I know we keep talking about it. And yes, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
It's very unfortunate because we were talking about this last night.
We were talking about this. Let's be clear. It was like 4 a.m. Eastern. We were texting like psychopaths at like very late in the evening about this tournament.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I think Scotty is putting together one of the best, and it's statistically proven at this point, one of the best tee to green productions that we have seen historically. I mean, this like rivals what Tiger Woods has put together. And unfortunately, the putter has just been so bad that we've turned a season where he should have like 6, 7, 8 wins, if we're being honest here, to where he's struggling to produce. And I kind of have worries about that right now, that this might be another one of those T10 Scotty weeks where the putter just goes cold and unfortunately he doesn't win. But if the putter can just be neutral, like this is a runaway probably.
I mean, but how many weeks are we going to say this? Like,
it's every week.
You know, he's number one. You name like whatever statistical category you want, he's number one. And then you get to putting and he's like 100 plus across the, it's awful. I want to blame Meredith. I don't know what it is. It's someone else's fault. It can't be Scotty's, but I cannot watch him putt the way that he has. I do have a futures bet on him. I had a 12-1 bet. I don't even know when I made that bet. Big fan of it though, because you know, the number looks a little bit different, but just echoing off what you said, like this is really like, you want elite approach play, but throughout the entire bag. Like this is, you want this well-rounded player that plays just everything solid around the greens, length, the creativity is interesting. You mentioned that. We'll talk about Spieth a little bit later. But looking at the top of the board, it's what you expect, right? Scotty, Rahm, Brooks, Rory, Homa, Thomas, Cantlay, Hovland. You go down, it's almost what you would expect. Looking at it, like when you first looked at it, was there a name that stood out that was like, that price doesn't seem totally right?
I think everybody's a little short. And I think that's what makes these betting boards difficult. And that's kind of the answer that I give every week. It's probably likely that one of these golfers wins and you're put into this position to where you kind of have to grab these gross numbers that you didn't necessarily want to take. And it's a big exposure that comes into doing it. I think if we're like directly comparing these names, look, my model is always going to like Rory McIlroy. I can't bet him at a major championship right now. He's not proving that he can win a tournament. Like if he's going to beat me at 10-1, it's fine. He can beat me at 10-1. I think of all the names that we're talking about, like if we're talking, let's say Scotty, Rahm, Brooks, Cantlay, Rory. I mean, I guess we can include Hovland and Xander into that. I think Scotty is still very intriguing just because of the tee to green acumen that he is going to bring to the table. The one that I am most intrigued with, though, would probably be Victor, just because of his ability to putt from off the surface. And I wish this was a different number, and maybe we can find it where it drifts somewhere throughout the week. And that's something to keep in mind is major championships are very unique in the sense that like books are going to be stingy with their prices, but there's also such a competitive market that you are going to see books make decisions between Monday through Wednesday night to where they may move a number throughout the week that you can get a better price. We talked about it during the last major that we did at the PGA Championship to where you get boosts for these tournaments. So there's going to be options to get a little bit better numbers than what you have in these spots. But I kind of like Hovland this week, Stephie, and I never give that answer.
Which I like that you like him because he is one of my futures bets. I didn't feel great about it because I was like, he just won. I want him to hold out. I'm like, just a couple more weeks. Like, can you win at the US Open? But I don't hate it. I think that his game still, like, I'm still in on him. One of the names before we get into these like smasher passes is And that's totally right. He is better on, you know, these bent grass greens a little bit more. But where are you at, like, temperature check with Justin Thomas? Like, where are we at? Because I saw his odds and I feel like the market hasn't caught up to the way that he's playing. Like, they're still being pretty kind to him.
Yeah, like I would want, like, we're never going to get to these numbers, but I'd want over 50 to back him at this point. Like, I just don't think he's all quite there. And there's a lot of players we can give that answer to. And I think that's what makes it such a unique board to look at from top to bottom. Right. There are a lot of cutoff points where I think players are overpriced and I don't necessarily want exposure to them. And like, look, I mean, I guess we'll talk about the elephant in the room right now with Cameron Young. That's a price even still. Like, it's a weird answer to give because I would give this answer regardless. Like, I didn't use last week's stats in my model when I built it. I don't even have that, 60 something at the place finish or wherever he actually finished inside the results for my model this week. But he did not grade very well for me. Like, he's outside the top 40 of my model. Yet a lot of books, he's like 40-1 or less. So I just don't know if there's like value in a lot of these prices that we're looking at. And it's the same problem where we move it up. We've talked about this so many times with Xander and Cantlay. It's like, sign me up when they were 30-1 a year ago. Right. I don't have any interest when now all of a sudden they're like sub 20-1 options. And they're, I mean, specifically Xander, they're not winning golf tournaments at those numbers. And my model absolutely loves Xander this week. It loves him every single week and it always likes him in these majors, but I can't get there at 18-1. Yeah.
And honestly, I had my drunken model that I was playing with last night and then I kind of reworked it, but he ended up like rating out higher than he did when I was like drunk. And I didn't want that to be the case, but it's really hard to not back him. And I'll just go right into smash or pass, honestly. So with Xander, and we can talk about it. How do you play Xander this week? Because like, do you go to look at like the finishing top 10? He can't win if his life straight up depended on it, but I feel like I want to have some type of action on him. You look at his stats, he's 5th in total strokes gained. Like, there's a lot to like here about Xander. He's playing great golf, but he cannot fucking win.
Yeah, he's 3rd in my model in expected scoring for how I built this course. And I kind of would expect, like, if you look at his US Open success that he's had over the past 5 years, it's a bunch of top 10 finishes where he just doesn't get over the hump and never wins the golf tournament.
Yeah.
I don't know what the best way to play him is, to be honest, because if we can't get there in an outright, I would love a bet against somebody like Morikawa. I'm just so convinced at this point that if it's even a matchup that's offered, it's going to be juiced to all hell that it's just like not going to be bettable at that point. So I don't know. Like, I'd be curious to see where they put him as inside the top 10 in the top 20 market, but a lot of that's already going to be built into the price. Like, there's a reason why a golfer gets placed at 18-1. And in like Xander's position here, it's not because the books are rigging it in their favor. Like, that's one of the first things to say. Like, we have to call it what it is. Right. But the other thing is it also skews the number back into their favor when we're talking about top 10 bets, top 5 bets, top 20 bets. Like, it makes it less obtainable for people like us to be able to place those wagers profitably. So he's kind of priced out of the market everywhere. And that's what makes it so challenging. He's going to be very popular, I would assume, in DraftKings. That's kind of every single major for him. And like, if I'm directly comparing him, and I guess we can even like run through some of these names. There's a couple interesting ones. Like, would you rather have Xander or Max Homa this week?
I have a Homa outright ticket from a very, very long time ago. I'm starting to not feel as good about Homa. I actually think I would lean Xander, surprisingly. And I don't think if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said that. I just, the California narrative is there. I get it. And he's playing good golf. He's rested, went to his sister's wedding. And there's a lot to like him coming into this. But I mean, he's been awful at majors, right? Like, is there, he hasn't recorded a top 10 yet in his career at a major. So I'm not sure that I feel like as confident in him. Like, he's someone where I think this is the week where we probably see him finish in the top 10. But I think that Xander potentially has a little bit higher of a ceiling actually than Homa.
Yeah, I like both of them. Like, I think in the $9,000 section, like I thought there was going to be a lot of ownership around
Right.
Rory, but then what Rory did this week on Sunday, like that might turn some people off. It'll be interesting to see where the ownership goes with Spieth, and like Fitzpatrick might be a very intriguing leverage play. I think Cameron Smith might be a very intriguing leverage play. Like those are golfers to me where the outright price kind of becomes somewhat doable at a certain moment if it can drift up enough with it. But
Right.
I got to be honest, Stephie, and this is kind of a different answer than we were talking about earlier. Homa's position is so weird here because he's
So
great.
weird.
He's great in California, and everybody knows that.
With this course,
He is he has the course record here in 2011. Everybody knows that. And like all those things have made this an unbettable situation by the way that the number moved. Like when he was 50 to 1, that's an incredible price, or whatever price anybody got him at in that like 40 to 50 to 1 range there. I'd be curious to see if he drifts up a little bit more. The one thing about Homa that I want to mention that kind of is pushing me back into wanting to play him, he was number 1 for me in expected weighted strokes gained total for this course. He graded superbly well across the board in every single category that went into that. So I'm curious. I kind of think you're right. This might be the week where Homa ends up competing and actually it's like the narrative is too perfect. It's in California. It's at a course that he's found success on in the past, and everybody's going to want to play him for that reason. But I kind of think that that's the right answer. So it puts you in that weird spot to figure out what to do. And like I said, there are ways to pivot in this range. I still think Fitzpatrick and Cameron Smith are two really intriguing options, and I could make an argument for either one of them in the outright market. So that's kind of where I'm at right now of where I'm going to try to build this card, I think, is I'm curious to see what I can get on a Hovland price when things open back up on Monday. And then I'm really curious of where like that Homa number moves, Fitzpatrick, Cam Smith, if we move down a little bit more. I'd like to see where Tyrrell Hatton ends up being on the odds board. But, you know, outside of that, most of these other names I'm probably out on to win this tournament. You could I'm going too far down the board, obviously, here, but you could convince me a little bit on Bryson if you can find the right number. I know that's something that we talked about.
I have a future on him, but I mean, it's a 65 to 1, and I think at that value, that's like ridiculous. I don't even know how many months ago I had probably bet that, but okay. Let's do smash or pass because I'm interested before we dig too much into like all of these. I'll let you go first. Like, where do we want to start with all these?
Well, I'm going to cherry pick an answer where I already know where you're going to go with it, but it's a name that I want both of us to talk about. Smash or pass on Joaquin Niemann?
Smash. He, you know, we'll talk about a little bit later in the show, but he's probably my underrated player for, you know, this tournament. And I'll let you get into it. But I think, you know, you look at this is the only other Bell and Thomas design like used on tour, and it's Riviera, right? So that's where he won. And I think that he's a really nice fit here. He's playing very well right now, and his number is nice.
It's a good number, and I think there's a lot of ways to consider him. And he's the kind of golfer that you can push up into that top 10, top 20 sort of a bet. And consider him there, but really good on fast courses, really good on firm courses, inside the top 10 of my model for expected scoring on this course. He's inside the top 5 for me for weighted proximity. I think like most of the numbers that you're looking at are going to grade really well. And that's the enticing thing with him. And I think there's a lot of live golfers that we can talk about where we've had this up and down with them to begin the season. Nobody wanted to play them, then everybody wanted to play them, and now we're kind of in the spot where people want to play them, but they're picking and choosing the names that they want to pick in these spots. I'm curious to see where Niemann falls into the mix here because I do think he's a top, 15 win equity sort of player, and if you can get a number, and I'm curious to see where this number moves to, like if this can get up to the 80s, 90s, 100s, and maybe you can shop around and already find that out there. I don't know what the best price in the market is for him right now, but that's a really intriguing bet on a kid that I've always thought has immense upside. He's still super young, and people kind of just forget that because he left to live, and it's like out of sight, out of mind with him at this point.
Yeah, it looks like there might be right now some 80 to 1s out there, 90 to 1s out there. And I think that's a really good value. I think that I see myself, the action I will probably have on him is he probably falls into this like top 20, top 10 range. Also kind of like him as like a first round leader type guy
I do
too.
too.
Although he does tend to finish, a little bit stronger during the weekend, but he's someone that, again, like from this whole PGA Live merger, I'm so excited to like hopefully get more Neiman back. Like he's a young guy that had such I was so excited to watch his future because I think what he was doing, he was bound for something really, really fantastic. So I think this shapes up well for him. Do I see him totally winning? I don't know, but that number there, you're getting a lot of value on a young guy who matches this course lovely. And it'll be interesting to see how he ends up playing.
Yeah, and I think like once you reach a certain point, and I saw David talk about this a second ago with the low ball flight that he has. With this being so fast and firm, like he's going to get extra roll out there. There's a lot of ways that you can play these shots into the greens and roll them up into the, with the undulation that you have in these spots. So there's a lot of ups and downs. And I think if you can just know where to hit it, like a lot of this course is knowing what side. And that's kind of where that's what makes it so unique is sometimes it's better to be on the left side than it is the right side. Yeah. And golfers, that's why I don't think it's only distance that comes into play. Although like that prerequisite of distance always helps. And Neiman's going to give you that distance and that roll up that you want. So he kind of has the best of both worlds where the distance is there, the weight of proximity is there. And the upside for me is technically there. And I'm curious to see where that number ends up going.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'll go to the next one. We talked about this guy a little bit last night. He comes up a lot on this show. We all know how I kind of feel about him. Smash or pass, can't fucking do anything like Patrick. Where are we at with him? Because, I mean, he rates out very well for me.
He's going to rate out very well for everybody, I think. And every week. And he's kind of moved into this territory now that when you run a model, he's almost penciled in. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of weeks, it's Scheffler and Rahm in whatever order. And a lot of times Cantlay is the third choice for me. Yeah. And that's sometimes above names like Rory and obviously like the Xanders of the world fit into the mix here and there. But I don't know, Stephie. I'm never going to go on to a show and say I'm completely fading Cantlay, but I have some concerns. I'm curious to see where the ownership goes for DFS. I think he's priced out from an outright bet. Like, I'm just going to make him beat me at this point. I cannot keep chasing these prices with him. He's going to make me bankrupt if I keep betting him at these numbers. I'm curious to see where the ownership comes in for DFS. If it's a really high number, I could see myself just trying to pivot onto whatever name ends up being the cheap or the low owned one of the group.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's kind of a stay away. I think where I could probably settle with him is maybe I find myself, depending on the number, at a top 10. He was top 15 in both majors this year. And it's going to kind of, with him, it'll be how well he capitalizes on these birdie opportunities at this course, I think. I mean, you look at his number, he's in a good 7th in greens in regulation, 30th, and you name it, he's in a good spot. But kind of like Homa, the majors aren't always kind to him. A little bit, obviously better than Homa, though Homa is a different scenario. But I don't know that, he doesn't have, I think the last time, what was it? He had a top 5 in like 2019, 2018. I don't remember the last time it was, but it's been a minute. And he plays very great golf, but maybe it's his face is just not very likable, and that's part of it. But I feel like you're just, I tweeted it earlier. I'm going to find other ways to torture myself this week, and it's probably not going to be with Cantlay.
I think that's a fair way to look at it. It's he's going to win at some point, but a lot of these players, whether it's Xander, Cantlay, Cam Young, a lot of these names, I don't think that they're doable at the prices that we're currently having to bet them to try to get into the winner's circle. And that doesn't mean you can't find exposure in a different way. And look, you never know where these numbers end up moving. As I said, I think with Cantlay, people are going to bet him. It's LA. We know of his history playing in LA. So I don't think we're going to necessarily get the movement in the right direction. This probably closes more in that like 12, 14 to 1 range. And he's just completely out. But I wouldn't be shocked if he won the golf tournament. I can't get there at the price.
Well, he's someone, and again, it is, the price is there for a reason, because it wouldn't be shocking if he won. That's why a lot of these guys are sitting at the top, because if they want to be like, yeah, he's one of the best golfers, it makes sense that he won. That makes a lot of sense. So for me, it's probably a pass this week, only because I'd rather, spend my money elsewhere. But who you got next for a smash or pass?
All right, Stephie, smash or pass Wyndham Clark this week?
We talked about this last night. Lighting up in my model. It's a smash. I don't know if I'm going to get there in the outright market, but I know that I will have exposure to him. Where are you at?
Yeah, I'm going to smash also. Pretty much all iterations of how I ran my model, he saw a positive trajectory. And this is even for ups. I'm not saying he's going to necessarily win the tournament, but the irons in 2023 have just taken a massive turn for him. And that's the big difference. He always had the distance. He always had the putting acumen that you wanted. Now, all of a sudden, you add these irons to the mix, and there's a reason why he ranks 7th in my model for weighted strokes gained total. He's been really good on these firm, hard, fast courses. So I think he's another guy where if you look at him, hoping it ends up bringing down the ownership. It's not currently right now, but miscut at U.S. Opens over the last 2 years. I would not necessarily look at that and think that that's the version that we have of him right now. He's a completely different golfer. He's one of those names that we have talked about countless times, Stephie, to where he's one of the biggest movers for me this year in expectation. I really like him. This might be his coming out party on a much broader stage that we have not seen. Like, obviously, yes, he's won a tournament this year, but now put him on a major. There is a realistic chance that if you're looking for a dark horse name that can steal this tournament, like, there's only so many options once I scoot down to a certain range. Like, it's Neiman, it's Wyndham Clark. There's a couple other that I'm sure I can find, but that's kind of where the cutoff is for me of guys I'm actually looking to bet.
Yeah, and I'm with you. And he was someone that rated out almost embarrassingly well. I'm like, don't even want to. But I think that he just fits. And like you said, like we've talked about him a lot. What he's doing now is not necessarily unexpected, but he's playing better than I guess how I thought he would this year. Speaking of a potential dark horse, we'll go to my smash or pass. And we didn't talk about him yet. It's someone that we have not been kind to the last couple of weeks. So you probably have not changed your stance. He did not rate out well for me, but I'm intrigued this week. Theegala. Let's talk about him. What are our thoughts?
I don't know, Stephie. We did talk about him a couple weeks ago, and I think I mentioned that I really like him for a U.S. Open sort of venue because of some of the intangibles that he does bring to the table. He's been really solid for a golfer that I think the sentiment on him when this year started was he was a name that was highly volatile, but you haven't necessarily gotten that. I think he's made 19 consecutive cuts in a row now leading into this. He's a California guy, so he's going to be comfortable on this property. I do think that we've pushed this a little bit too far number-wise. Like, that's kind of been my argument within these past few weeks is everybody keeps wanting to bet him. I don't know if I necessarily think he's going to win the golf tournament. To me, he's more of like a top, and I don't think the price is going to be conducive to back him in this sense, but he's more of like a top 40 sort of a wager to where like that's more of how my model spits him out. But he graded 41st overall for me. He had a little bit of positive when I did run this for upside. So, I mean, that's always something worth looking at, but he never is necessarily a guy that, you know, quote unquote, breaks my model in a positive way. I think from a weighted strokes gained total sense, like just outside the top 30 for me, that's an encouraging thing for a golfer that does have a lot of form, but I am definitely lower than the consensus answer seems to be on Theegala, but I don't know. I mean, good course for what he can bring to the table. And he is a golfer that is wild at times. And as long as he's not the wild form of him that is like 80 yards right or left, he's going to be able to spray it a little bit more. So, I mean, based off of that answer, you technically have to like him, and you do have to like the short game that he brings to the table. He's one of the better around the green plus recent putters that I have in my model. So I guess that's a very long-winded answer to say I'm fine with him. Just, I don't want to bet him as an outright.
Yeah, I don't think I'll get there as an outright. I just think that this court, like when I think of him, it's like this firm, fast type, challenging, high stakes. Like he does better in these difficult scenarios. And, you know, I said it before, I think that, you know, his win will be a major before anything else. I just see that being, you know, my issue is though, he's become a darling. So he's almost, I don't know where his ownership is going to be too high. I don't know where I'm going to be able to find the value. I'd like to play him somewhere on my card. I don't know where that's going to be. So I will smash him this week. I just don't know in what capacity, I guess.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I'll give you one right now. We'll move into a golfer that I might regret giving the answer that I'm going to give for him. And I kind of changed my mind last minute here. The price on DraftKings is going to make him so popular. I think it's going to be outrageous with it. And I have some concerns about what we've gotten from him recently. Dustin Johnson, smash or pass?
It's funny that you brought him up because I think that no matter what, he's going to end up being a popular pick. But I'm interested to see, like, I see myself having him in DFS. Like, I think that is probably the direction I go. Like 28-1. I mean, I don't know. I can't tell if that's a good number or a bad number for him, honestly.
I think it's a bad number.
I think it's a bad number, yeah. Because you look at the guys around him and what I guess you could get a little bit lower, and I feel more comfortable doing that.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I just, like, obviously on DraftKings, he's going to be very popular because of that price tag. And specifically when you compare that price tag to the outright number that you just mentioned, like, he looks mispriced based off of that. I kind of the entire year have just been on this fade Dustin Johnson. Like, I had so much exposure against him, and like I had Sungjae Im against him in my full tournament matchup, and that one did not go well at the PGA Championship because Sungjae missed the cut.
Yeah.
But I bet against him every single round, and I ended up becoming pretty profitable for the PGA Championship fading Dustin. So I am going to be out on Dustin. And then to answer David's question, I really like Kitayama here. I think he has the long irons and kind of that like volatile boomer bust game. I think Fox brings the same intangibles there. And I am not as high of a Min Woo Lee guy as some people are. I think from a distance answer, like there's going to be ways where he's going to pop well. I think the recent putting looks really good for him. I don't have him as somebody, and maybe this is just from too small of a sample size, that graded particularly well for me on these like fast, firm courses. He was outside the top 100 in both of those ways. So that would be my concern, but the scrambling numbers look good. The distance looks good.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about a golfer that's $7,000 on DraftKings. I do think he's going to be a little bit popular. That would be another reason why I would maybe say no to him. Like if he was 1% owned, like 1 or 2% owned, and I am dart throwing down in this range. Yeah. I mean, he has the potential to pop and to give you a top 10 sort of finish, but with this being 156 players, top 60s ties only making it, I do worry a little bit about his miscut equity here.
I agree with that. I think if I were to like, or like rank these guys, I know that my mom was pretty high on Fox. It'd probably be Fox, Kitayama, and then a little bit of a drop, and then Min Woo, I think is where I would have them. But I'm with you on that. I also could see all three of them missing the cut too, is the thing.
They're boomer bust plays. It's just like with Kitayama, I see we're on Sunday night. These numbers are going to move. Yeah. He's 6,800. I see like 3 to 4%. You kind of have to like that. With Fox, I see 4% at 7,100.
Right.
And then with Min Woo, I have closer to 10 right now. So that worries me on that percentage.
Okay, my next one. Ready?
Yes.
Jordan Spieth, smash or pass? Because I think I did it last night when we were talking. I did place a fairly large wager on him. Before I give my spiel, I'll see where you're at.
I am in the middle, Stephie. I think he can win this golf tournament. I think anytime that you get these, and I keep going back to it with Cameron Smith and with Spieth, these wide open tests, those are really like, you can look at a lot of the tournaments where both of them find success. You find these properties where you have these wide open venues where you really, you can find trouble. And when you find trouble, you're going to find really bad trouble here. Yeah. But if you don't find the trouble and you have a little bit more room for error, that's kind of where Spieth and Cam Smith take these big boosts in my model and take these big climbs for me. And then the weight of proximity looks good. The scrambling, the creativity for those two guys are always going to be great. I guess my concern more than anything with it is that number is and I don't know what you got him at. That number to me is a little bit saturated.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that he cannot win the golf tournament, but I would have preferred. I mean, if you could have promised me like 35 or 40 to 1, like more of what, like at the PGA Championship, which is a different venue and wasn't as great of a setup for him. This is a much better tournament for him to find success. And there are some weird Augusta similarities here, like with the wide open nature of it and the fast greens and, this fast and firm nature of what's going to go on. And, Spieth at Augusta is magical.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see him being magical at this property and winning this event. I just think that they've removed all the value from the number. That doesn't mean he doesn't win the contest at this point, but I'll let you talk to me about why you liked him.
So he might be the guy this week that everyone is like totally out on. And I guess I've been finding success in finding these guys that, if they were playing, slightly better, you would never see this number. Like he should be a guy. Normally Jordan Spieth have way different odds than he has, but again, he's not playing as well. I just think that this course fit. Again, you talk about the creativity. He's the type of guy, any type of course that challenges that and you have to be creative. He does very well, around the greens. He has a great short game. And everyone's kind of out on him, I think, because everyone perseverates on these injuries that may not end up being as big of a deal as we think. So he's someone that, he could win any given week too. He's that type of, any given Sunday, could be a Spieth Sunday, would be a really nice tournament for him, to get right and get back to, Jordan Spieth type odds. So I think I'll take one last week of like, let me take these odds because at some point I'm never going to be able to get them again.
I think the game type is exactly what you're looking for to win this tournament if he puts the pieces together. And I guess like for my smasher next one that I'll talk about, which I've already mentioned him a little bit, then I'll have you talk about him next. Smasher pass on Cameron Smith. And like, to me, Cameron Smith is more of the guy of like every single reason of what you answered for on Spieth.
Yeah.
I think I would just rather play Cameron Smith when I'm directly comparing. And there's a way you can play both. Like, depending on how you build your card, there are ways to put both of them in there. I don't think it's like a this or that scenario, but I just know with how I build my card. And if I do end up taking Hovland near the top there, I don't like having tons of outrights then that I'm going to have. Like, I would rather this be a Hovland, Cam Smith, Tyrrell Hatton, Fitzpatrick type of card, and like we call it a day there, and that's still like enough exposure for me. And we'll see. I don't technically even have a bet on anybody yet, but that's kind of where my mindset right now is, Stephie.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think you said it again. Like you think of the Cam Smiths, the Spieths. I just don't know, and it's hard with these live guys because I don't know how much I'm supposed to judge what they've done on live recently. Because for Cam Smith, it hasn't been great, but this is a nice course fit for him. So I might pass on him entirely. I think someone like him, I'm either going to decide I'm in or I'm totally out. Like, and it'll be one of those guys like, Cantlay, where I'm just going to stay away, where he could, I'd rather not lose money. I'd let him beat me. I'm just going to stay out kind of thing.
I think, and maybe I end up on the wrong end of this answer. We're too early in the week to really feel comfortable saying this. I think the two players that are going to be the forgotten golfers, whether it's like $9,000 and up on DraftKings or 25 to 1 or 25 to 1 or less on the board, will be Fitzpatrick and Cam Smith. Yeah. So like, I'm kind of taking the same mentality you are of let's get different and unique here with a golfer that I think is going to be a sub 10% option, who I am hoping drifts into that 30 to 1 plus range in the market. I'm hoping to find something there when things open back up on Monday. Really like the course setup for him. And I kind of keep going back to the same answer with Homa. I am curious to see where Homa's number ends up. Yeah. If I could find, and I don't know where it's going to go. I think the LA narrative and this course narrative might just push this to where he's unbettable at these new prices. But if he gets over 30 to 1, like, I don't know if you've noticed this, Stephie, and you even kind of said it yourself. It is such a common sentiment right now with Homa. Like, everybody who got the ticket at 50 to 1 is sitting there like, yeah, I got a good number on him, but feel like I kind of lit money on fire.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily, I mean, 50 to 1's an incredible, but like I would buy 50 to 1 off of anybody if they would sell the ticket. I think a 35 to 1, if he drifts up to that number, that might be a spot where I try to get different with it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, like we weren't even seeing those type of numbers at the last couple tournaments that he's been playing. So to get that value on him, he's still playing fantastic, having an awesome year. You just brought him up, and we'll go back and forth maybe one or two more times, but Matt Fitzpatrick, smash or pass, because I'm going to be honest, and this is someone that I have now taken off my no bet list, which I can do that because originally it was don't bet anyone with braces. He no longer has braces, so we're back in on Fitzpatrick. I am very in on him this week because I think you're onto something. I think he is going to end up being the forgotten one.
You know, one of the reasons too why he's going to be the forgotten one, which is such a ridiculous answer that I never understand, it's because he's the defending champion. And anytime somebody enters as the defending champion, the answer is, oh, he can't do this 2 years in a row. Well, sure. I mean, like that's common logic. I mean, like if you pick any particular golfer and say, are they going to win the tournament? The answer is most likely no. Like even if we say, is Scottie Scheffler going to win? Well, the answer is most likely no. He might win. He might be the favorite to win. But it's very difficult to win these golf events. And I think this is a really nice course setup for him. He's going to be the forgotten guy, in my opinion, on DraftKings. I think he might drift to a number that becomes very enticing. And I kind of believe we're in a spot right now, specifically what we've gotten with Hatton recently, which scares me about where this Hatton number ends up going. I think everybody, and Hatton might win this golf tournament. And I'm kind of kicking myself that I didn't grab a number earlier on this. Because I think this is a great course setup for him, that you might go back to back on the Englishmen winning, and it just might be Fitz and Hatton here. But if everybody's going to go to Hatton, like I don't necessarily see a massive difference between Fitz and Hatton. Like to me, they are very similar golfers with very similar upsides. And if we're talking DFS now for this answer, I could see Hatton pushing 17 to 20%, and I could see a world where Fitzpatrick ends up being like 5 to 7%.
Yeah, it's interesting. They actually read it out back to back. So Matt was right above him for me. But again, another guy that I normally am not in on, I would love for him to groom his beard a little bit before I want to be fully in. He looks like, he kind of looks like those gnomes, right? Like the gnomes that you put out in the yard. It's a gag gift type thing. His vibe's a little bit off. But he's not throwing as many tantrums, which was always my issue with him, is that, he was very volatile because he could get pissed off very quickly. He was like Rahm Jr., and it was not something that was attractive, but he's playing very well, rates out very well, really like the course fit. So I'm interested to see where Fitz and Hatton's numbers go, what the ownership is on both of those guys, because I think people will probably lean one way or another. My guess is maybe that they go the Hatton route, but
they will.
Which is, it'll be a good opportunity to grab Fitz, especially in DFS, I think. Where are you at for the last smash or pass?
I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to say 2 at once here.
Okay, fine. You normally do this, so it's okay.
Yeah, there's so many players I want to talk about, and we reached the end here where, like last week, we kind of just rapid fired through all the names at the end. But the 2 players here that I know your thoughts on one of them, and I'll set you up on the first one with Mito Pereira here on a smash or pass. The second one, Denny McCarthy.
Well, because there are 2 that rate out really well for me. But again, like, how do you play them? I don't foresee either of these guys. Like, I don't feel very confident in an outright bet. The value is there, though. They're probably guys where, depending on where the number goes, both of them, because they rate out very, very well. I feel weirdly a little bit more confident in Mito, which I kind of hate because I normally was never a Mito person. But like, depending on where, these finishing position numbers are at, I might lean that direction for both of these guys.
I think a finishing position bet is probably the one that makes the most sense. Let's see how they price this. They're obviously like low $7,000 golfers who I will say are carrying a pretty good deal of ownership right now. So when you see that, maybe the sportsbook will know that people or bettors want to back them. Yeah. Maybe we don't get as good of a price as I'm hoping for in this spot, but those are 2 names that I would at least keep an eye on. And
for sure,
McCarthy's very interesting. And maybe a head-to-head answer is even the way to play this. Like I would love a scenario, we'll see whoever they price him against, but anywhere like Let me see if I can find some names here. Just very quickly, I'll rattle through. Like, I don't think you're going to get him in matchups against Taylor Moore. I know you like Taylor Moore a little bit, but like Answer, Moore, Montgomery, I would love to have him. Those are guys that are more expensive than him on DraftKings. If I could get a head-to-head matchup that way, that would be great. I'd rather have him than Tom Hoagie. I know that's a guy that, regardless at this point, I think we're both out on Hoagie.
I am ignoring that name this week. I don't care where he is in my model. I can't do it.
I think that's fair. And
I can't do it. It's too much heartbreak.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see though. Like McCarthy for me in a head-to-head, I am very intrigued, and I never bet Denny McCarthy.
Before we go into our overrated and underrated, let's just do a quick temperature check on Finau, because this is a name that I don't, he's weird. He's either a darling or he's not. Like, it's either everyone's on him or no one's on him. And it's starting to feel like people are, again, like kind of overlooking him. He's in that range of, well, I'll ask you this. So 25-1, you've got Spieth, Fitz, Finau. Who are you picking out of those three?
Fitz.
Yeah. You don't feel happy. You don't sound happy.
I want to bet Finau every single week. Like, it's hard for me not to give the Finau answer. And I think they're all top 15-ish win equity options. Like, there's nobody of that group. And I texted you this earlier. Like, Finau was not grading well for me. And then I made a couple changes, and the upside of my model really likes him. The recent form pushed him down a little bit. I've always thought a US Open is his best chance to win a major. If he does pull one off, I think that these like scrambling around the green, be a good total driver type of tests are really good for him. I just don't think I can get there at the price. Like, how many times, Stephie, and like, I can't even give a number to this because it's so astronomical. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've bet Tony Finau at 30-1 or less. I have never hit one wager on him. Like, I'm probably approaching in 3 or 4 years of this. I don't know. Like, the number is so high. And if I found out how many units I'm down on Finau, it would be gross. Is like essentially where I'm trying to go with this. I don't know how many times I can keep punching the ticket at 30-1. He just doesn't win a golf tournament.
Yeah. My issue is
40 is a good number. Like if we can start pushing this up, those are good numbers.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I think with Finau, my issue is, unlike someone that I feel kind of strongly with Aguiar, where he probably will succeed in one of these like very, high stakes type places. Finau kind of just wins these like, weaker field type tournaments. Like, I don't know. And it matches up well for him. I think he's going to have to capitalize on birdies. He's going to have to be on point. I'd like to see if he has any nice matchup like value. I don't know who they would even consider putting him up against, but if I could find something nice there, I think that's the direction I'm going to go. Only because my model I was trying so hard to like him. I cannot find a way to like him as much as I want to.
You know who I could see them putting him up against that might make a lot of sense just because of the recent form that we have on both players here would be Justin Thomas.
Yeah, which I would be Finau. I would lean Finau absolutely if that were the case.
I would too.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into overrated, underrated. Where are you at? We'll do overrated first.
I don't even know. I mean, can he even be classified? I don't want to give Cameron Young. I scratch that whole thing I was going to do with that because I don't think anybody's going to play him. So you can't be overrated if you're not going to be played by
it could be in our heads. It's whatever we feel. It's screw everyone else. Whatever you think.
No, I will say overrated for me. Dustin Johnson, just because I think he's going to carry such an astronomical ownership percentage at 8,300. And US Opens are really good for him historically. I don't know if Dustin Johnson is the same player that he was 3-4 years ago.
Yeah. I don't think he cares either.
I don't think he cares.
I don't think he gives a shit. I think he's making a lot of money. We know that he is a awesome golfer. And that's kind of, I think his legacy has been written where you can see Brooks. And I don't know if I can, I unfortunately have a futures bet on Bryson, but I think maybe those guys a little bit more, they care about what's to come. Bryson, maybe not as much, but Brooks, there's just a difference in Dustin and Brooks. I don't know what it is. But I'm with you on that. I think for mine, I'm just going to stick with the guy. I've been doing this, week after week. I'm going to do it again. And I feel bad because I really like him. I do. I like him as a player, and I hope that he gets back to where he is. But Colin Morikawa, I cannot do it. And you know what? My model really likes him, and but it should. Like, I think that's good process. My first note in here is, I don't know, fuck him, which is not nice. But it's just his vibe is just off. His putting is ass. Like, he has this elite iron play that he is just flushing down the toilet. And again, you can rattle off stats to me all day. He's not Colin Morikawa. I think people he has not won a PGA title since the second major in 2021. Like, we are not dealing with the same animal that we were. He withdrew at Memorial, I think, didn't he? Right? I don't know. Was it an injury or is he in his head? Like, I think that something else is going on with Colin. Like, Colin doesn't seem like Colin. Something's up. So overrated is the wrong word. I'm just, again, very much staying out on him while you guys can continue to bet on him. I'm going to continue to be out until I see the Colin that I love.
I mean, contrarian take, just because I know everybody loves Colin. I don't think overrated is the wrong word there. I think Colin Morikawa is overrated as a golfer. He's one of those players at hard, difficult courses can spike if he brings his putter to the mix with him, because this could be a really good venue for him to potentially, just because of his approach play. And, he's going to hit a lot of fairways. He'll get some roll out there. If the putter cooperates, he can find success. And he's fifth in my model of strokes gained total on hard courses, but I worry about the scrambling. I am not, and I mean, I have beaten this so many times on every single show, every single major. I'm not a Colin Morikawa guy. He burns me more, like Morikawa and Koepka burn me more than any golfer, those two, than any golfer on the tour. And so I'm used to losing to Morikawa when he does put it together, but I always think people just play him more frequently than they should. Like, he's never that under the radar.
It's, again, I told you guys, stop being so emotional. You're emotionally connected to Morikawa. That's the issue. I don't know. I think that everyone's really hanging on to something that we haven't seen in a very long time. We see that with other players too, but especially him. It's like, no matter what, no matter the number, he's like the first guy in everyone's card. And you're just not, again, like, he's playing great. Something is wrong. Like, he is not, something is off. It's just very off. I don't know what entirely it is. And sometimes the stats don't reflect that. It's beyond his putter. He just doesn't look like Colin Morikawa. So who are you got for underrated?
I'm going to rapid fire off a couple names here. Just a couple names that I want to talk about that maybe we haven't mentioned yet. I think Andrew Putnam is underrated. He's the most underrated player in my model price-wise at 6,800. Don't think he's going to win the tournament. I would consider him as a top 40 bet. Curious to see where that number ends up coming in. That's kind of going to be one of my first looks on Monday or Tuesday when those markets open there. I like Russell Henley at this tournament. I always like Russell Henley. I like Denny McCarthy. I think Bryson DeChambeau, for a lot of the reasons that we've talked about so far. I think he's a good price that actually has upside to win this tournament. And to me, Wyndham Clark, although I do think Wyndham Clark will be popular, but that's kind of like the group of names where I'm going to try to figure out between matchups and placements where I can actually get them in price, because I think those are names that, specifically Putnam, I wouldn't be shocked.
He rated out very well for me. I think we talked about this last night too. He did rate out very well for me. Actually, so did Henley too. But there's a couple of these guys that surprised me a little bit. So there will be a way that I find a little bit of action on them.
I could see Putnam being 2-1 to come top 40. And that's an intriguing price if he gets out that far.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked about it. I'll drop one of the bigger names and then I'll rattle through a few guys so I don't kick myself that popped up for me. But Hovland, again, I talked myself back into him because I was kind of upset that I had this futures bet. I was like, you couldn't wait another couple weeks to win, but his putting has been just lovely. He's in a good spot. He has really strong iron play. He's still looking for a major win. Great at driving the ball. I had a nightmare last night, actually, though, that it was another bunker situation. and he lost because he was trying to get out of the bunker, and it went the way that it normally does for Hovland coming out of the bunker. So the bunkers concern me a little bit. But I think, again, like, I feel very comfortable, having that future. I probably not going to take him at the number that you see on the market right now, but I'm going to find additional exposure to him. Some random names, like you said, Bryson was, popping up for me for some reason. Sepp Straka. So that's maybe like a DFS play, not going to be something that I'm like, yeah, go bet him. He's going to win. He's not going to win this tournament, but I think there's a lot to like about him here.
Top 40.
Gerard again, too. I don't know why he keeps popping up for me. Siwoo Kim is another guy that I like, but these are more, I'm talking DFS, positional, depending on what number you get on them. Those are a few of the guys that I have my eye on.
I also seem to like Siwoo Kim. I seem very popular on DraftKings right now, but he was top 30 for me in all 3 ways that I ran my model. So I have absolutely no problems with him. And I'm just curious to see where that ownership goes. I feel like it's going to fall because course history at US Opens has not been great historically. Yeah. Although I don't think this is like your prototypical US Open property. It's going to be a very fun tournament.
I agree.
We didn't even talk about any of this, and we'll find out more as the week goes on. And like right now, I see the rough pretty thick there. If it's thick rough and you kind of have this as fast as I think it could be, I don't know what the winning score is going to be. Like, I don't think they want to embarrass the players. It's probably going to be like 5 under, 6 under. Yeah.
If I had to guess, I think it's going to be like 6. My guess would be like 6 under, I think.
I think that's probably like somewhere in that range feels fair to me with it. Yeah. It's just, you have some really weird holes. Like you have some par 4s that are over 500 yards that are going to be difficult. You're going to have to like salvage par in those situations. You have 2 par 3s and there's 5 par 3s, 3 par 5s, and 10 par 4s that the par 4s are scattered all the way across the board. But like there's these weird elevation change par 3 holes that are measuring like nearly 300 yards on the scorecard.
No,
it's not going to play as a 300-yard hole necessarily. Like it's going to be a downhill shot with a bunch of slope going into it from what I can tell from the course. But you don't see that. Like it's just such a unique setup from any week on tour. And that's what's most exciting about this is I'm hoping this course just absolutely blows everybody out of the water. And I wish they would make it a little bit more difficult. Like I'd love to see that 1 under, 2 under total end up winning this. We don't need to embarrass them and make it some like 4 over total, but the harder this plays, I think the better the course will be.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm expecting it to play really fast. So it'll be interesting to see how it ends up playing out. And again, like really weird names were ending up to like pop up for me. I know we talked last night a little bit like Norin, some of these like random names. It'll be interesting to see who shines here. Eric Cole was another name I know that popped up. I know that I am kicking your ass in Who's Your Daddy, but we have to do it because now it's a show thing and we have to keep the segments. So I believe I beat you again this week.
Every week.
I know. It's not going well. You beat me 1 week. You did, it didn't, you beat me last week. Okay. Where are we at? Because I did originally say that I was going to take Max Homa this week. I'm not feeling as confident in that. Where are you leading this week?
I texted you this, and this is the most ridiculous answer of anything I've ever done in my entire life. One of the things that people do in poker is like you can randomize situations. Like if you're in a spot where it's like a 50-50 position, there's different ways that you can do randomizers to try to figure out if you should call or fold in this spot that you're in. I built a portion of my model for this Who's Your Daddy contest with you. I swear to God. I swear to God. And what it does is it takes the percentage weight of my overall total on a player and it attaches a percentage. So like technically, and I don't have Scotty.
Meanwhile, I do this off vibes. Spencer does this off numbers, and I'm like, whose vibe am I into this week?
But I've made it even worse. Now I'm like randomizing picks, trying to figure out how to go different with it. So like, just like I can't pick Scotty Scheffler because I've already used him, but like 15% of my weight of the randomization was on Scotty Scheffler until I removed him from the player pool. I decided I'm going to hold that for next week. If this week falls apart on me, I will go to randomizing next week, which is about as random as I can get and as desperate as I can be in the spot to try to get different here. I planned on taking Patrick Cantlay.
Okay.
but I'm not going to.
Why? Do it. That's a good pick.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Like, let's find another guy who's just going to screw me over this week. And this feels like, I want to say I took Cantlay last US Open. I mean, it worked out fine, but I mean, it wasn't as much money as I needed. And I need more money against you this week. I feel like my answer should be Xander. Like, that feels like the safest. Not going to go Xander either.
What?
I am going to take Victor Hovland. I did not plan to do that. Victor Hovland, I think he's going to win this golf tournament. That is my hope at the very least here.
Okay. Can you rip off the guys that I have used before I try to use the same person again?
Yeah, so Victor Hovland, you earned 1.5 million against me the very first week. So that was fun. That got us off to a great start. Jordan Spieth, Tom Hoagie, Siwoo Kim, Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, Tommy Fleetwood, Patrick Cantlay, Matt Fitzpatrick.
Wow. So I did use Scotty already. Interesting. I might regret backtracking, honestly, on this Homa pick. I already used Spieth. What direction do I want to go? I haven't used Rahm yet, have I?
No.
Just like not a fan. I can't believe I used Scotty already. I was thinking about it. Okay, let's go. You know what? We will stick with the plan here. I can't do it. No, I can't. I can't do it. There's no way. I'm going to go Rahm. I'm going to do it. Get him out of my face. It's fine. Let's get it over with. He'll throw a tantrum and probably miss the cut because I did it. I don't feel great about it.
I think Max Homa he might win this golf tournament.
I know, but you're trying to convince me because I told you, now I'm like leaning. I don't know. I don't feel great about Homa. I'm like, the second they remove trees from this like restoration, I'm like, I need tree lined. I need a little bit more tree lined for him. That's usually where I don't know. So I'll go Rahm. Let's take Rahm. Let's get it over with. Rip the Band-Aid. I don't feel good about it though.
Well, hopefully this is the week where, I mean, if I can pull off a victory here with you taking one of the biggest players and I take Hovland, and I don't even know how much I'm down to you at this point. Like it's really bad. Like it's millions of dollars, but hey, if I hit this and it's like $3.5 million, I'm right back in this.
Maybe you can get hot. This could be where you get hot right here. It could be.
Victor Hovland was always meant to be my dad in this contest.
That's true. Maybe
I also said this last week about Cameron Young, and that did not go well.
Yeah, the Cameron Young. Well, we'll see. Are you out before we get out of here? Are you in or out on Cam Young this week?
Nobody's gonna play him, Stephie.
Listen, but you're sick. You are obsessed.
My model hates him. My model hates him. My model hates him. I just want to end it there. Spencer
texted me probably like, I don't know when it was. It's like day 2. He's like, he's still gonna win. I know it. I'm like, he's not winning. There's no way. But yeah. All right. Well, Rahm, hopefully he continues to keep me afloat. I promise if Rahm does do me dirty this week, it will be the last time I trust this guy ever. We'll probably do another show Wednesday, something shorter, go through some of these positional, where the value is, CFS wise, see how things move. But appreciate everyone jumping on. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll catch you on Wednesday. Happy Sunday, everyone.